Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kathy and today is a Tip Tuesday video on how to get the most out of your embossing image when you're using embossing powder. So I do have a couple tips that you probably already heard of, but just for those who haven't, I guess this video is for you. So for the embossing powder today, I'm going to be using this Ranger embossing powder in white, and it's super fine detail. And Close to My Heart just started reselling embossing powder, so this is brand new. And what I did is I put it into this Ziploc kind of Tupperware container. If you know Christina from Christina Warner Designs, this is something that she's done for years, and that's where I kind of learned it from. And I just find this handy. If you put the embossing powder in there and then you use the spoon when you're putting it on your image, then you can, all the powder will just fall back. The excess powder will fall back into the container. I just find it a lot easier than putting it on paper and then trying to scoop the paper back into that little jar. So and for today's image, I picked this stamp set. It's called Simple Memories, and it's a stamp set for Close to My Heart, but I don't think you can actually get it anymore. But I'm sure that you'll have lots of different stamp sets of your own that you can choose from that have a lot of detail. And I wanted something specifically with the detail in it because I want to see how well this embossing powder works. So I picked actually this one. And one of the tips that I have is I have this old sack. I bought this quite a while ago. I don't know if you can still get these, but I think it's like a flour sack that has cornstarch in it. And so what you want to do is take your piece of cardstock and you just want to lightly kind of rub it over. And the reason is because you can't have any kind of even oil from your hands or fingers like on the cardstock. So basically that just creates like a light dusting. I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up on the camera. A light dusting over the black cardstock. And then you want to stamp your image right on top. Now so what you're going to do is take your Versamark ink, and you're just going to be trying to get a generous amount of Versamark on there. Now, because our stamps don't come with a foam piece between the image and the block, you need to use a foam piece underneath so that you get a clear image. So what I'm going to do is just go straight down on the cardstock, and I'm going to be pressing it fairly generously because the image has so much detail in it that I want to make sure I capture that. So there is the image, and then you're going to take your embossing powder and you just want to make sure that the spoon doesn't hit the image. So, and you can tell right away, like especially because this is white on black, you can tell right away where the embossing powder is going and if you have enough on there or not. And then you just use the spoon to kind of tap off the excess back into your container. So I do find with this one in particular, you do have to heat set it for quite a while for it to before it's actually done. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can actually see what I'm doing. And then I'll show you when I'm done. So this might go on for a bit. Okay, so that should do it. So I did find this one quite interesting. When you go to do it, you can actually almost see the powder still as a powder, and then as it starts to set, it'll kind of smooth out, and you actually won't see as much kind of like sandy grains in there. So, but this one took longer to set than some of the other embossing powders that I've used. Like Clear is usually a bit faster. So anyways, I'm just gonna let that dry because it's if I touch it now, it's gonna actually be tacky. So that is actually, I'm quite impressed with that. I probably could have taken like a brush or something and actually got rid of more of the specks around the outside of the image, but overall I'm actually quite happy with how that turned out, considering there's so much detail in that image. So the other one tip that I'm going to give you is you can actually also, this is what I've heard, you can use a bounce sheet from your dryer, and that'll create the same effect where if you just use it to rub over your paper, then you'll get any kind of oils or anything that happen to be there. And then again, I'm just going to use the same So again, I'm just going to use the same image and just see if I notice a difference. It might be subtle, I might not notice any difference between using that sack versus the bounce sheet, but I am kind of curious to know if the bounce sheet works, you know, as well, just because that's such a handy thing, and then that's the way you can recycle your bounce sheets. So I will just take a piece of paper and put it under my foam square again. I do find with this one I have to press like fairly hard in order to, because there's so much detail, you want to get all that. And the great thing about this stamp set is as soon as you pull it away, you can see that whether you've done it, if you've actually gotten all the places or not. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set this, and then I'll show you it at the end, and then we can kind of decide if there is a difference or not between the two, the bounce sheet and that little sack of cornstarch. Okay, so this is the second one I did with the bounce sheet. Just comparing the two, I actually do feel that the one on the right, so this one here that I used the sack with, because there's more powder and stuff that comes out of it, I feel like it did a better job in the middle, like in the center area here, not grabbing the embossing powder, whereas this one there is some in the middle, and there's definitely more on the outside of this image, like the little spots, you know, these little spots here. There's more of those than there is on this one. I think in this case with the first one, I probably could have taken like a little paintbrush or something and flicked off and could have quite easily flicked off all of these little specks that are around the outside. This one would have been a bit harder because there are some like quite close to the image here, and then also in the center, and that if I would have tried to get them out of the center, I think I would have you know, kind of gone into the image itself, which would have ruined it. So that's very interesting to me. I actually think the sack works a bit better. I think that if you had nothing though, I would definitely recommend using a bounce sheet and then trying to get, like, use a fine paintbrush or something and flick away some of the powder that you couldn't get. But yeah, that's very interesting. So I hope that you let me know below whether you've had any experience with using a bounce sheet, and what how it worked for you, and I'd love to hear that. So thank you so much for watching this tip, and until next time, happy crafting. Thanks. Bye bye.